Yeah, welcome back to McCarthy Performance. This is going to be my second video on the 350. We're going to be reconditioning the rods. We started on the rods. We're going to finish the rods up on the big end. And the next video will be pin fitting and hanging the pistons on the rods. So we'll get going on it. So we've got these spot faced. I didn't get too crazy. I just wanted to get the highs off of them, make sure there was nothing standing up, so we got them all spot faced. Now we're going to lightly break the edge here. We'll do that right now. With a die grinder and a little wheel on it. That's a Kradex type MX wheel, 80 grit. So we'll hit them quick. Okay, we've gone in here with the die grinder and deburred this. You always want to make sure that there's no metal hanging off here or the bolts hitting this. So I've ground this area back just a little bit. Now I'm going to hit it with the MX wheel, Crate X. You can buy them under 80 grit. I'm just going to buff them a little bit, get the burrs off of them. Get them ready for the bolts. We'll run a brush through the holes. That one's good. We're not trying to enlarge the hole. I'm not going in there. I'm just breaking the edge and putting a nice radius on it. Them ARP rod bolts have usually a bigger fillet area around them. We want to make sure that that presses all the way down and sits flat. I broke the edges here so there's nothing hanging off of there when they machined it. You'll sometimes see metal hanging off the machine parts from the factory, so it's important that you take care of that, or at least I do. So we've taken a wire wheel and I've gone over this with a wire wheel and a file and hit the sides of it with a wire wheel to get rid of any loose material that's going to fall off. Go and clean out the bearing tang. So we're going to go in here with a brush next, clean these out, and then I'm going to press the bolts in. I'm going to take the caps and do the same thing with the caps. Okay, we've hit the caps with the wire wheel, went over them lightly, knocked the burrs off of them. Now we're going to run the gun cleaner brush through the holes, do all the holes for the bolts to go through, get the rust and all the other crap out of there, and we'll put the bolts in. Okay, with the new ARP bolts in the rods and everything don't necessarily go together. Sometimes you got to touch up these through holes in the cap that the knurling rides on. Now you don't want it so loose that the cap's moving all around. That's the whole idea of this shoulder on this rod bolt. It holds the cap in place. So when you machine it and you take it apart and you put it together, it has a repeatability to it. So you don't want this really loose, but you want it fairly tight. Now, I'll take and put it in the vise, rod vise, and I'll work the knurling a little bit and smooth it out, because sometimes this is a little bit high. Now smooth it out. This side isn't a problem. It goes in there nice and smooth. And I'll take a sandpaper roll, and this is a wore out one, so it's probably around 120, and I'll lightly go in there and I'll take care of any of the high spots that could be in there. They're not very nicely machined from GM. So you might find, if you find that you're only going about halfway down and it stops, don't put it together. You'll never get it apart, or you'll have a hell of a time getting it apart. It won't be fun either way, trust me. So that's what you want to do with this. So I've gone in here and I've washed it, and if you see, maybe you can see I've lightly polished it inside. You don't want to get too crazy. Like I said, you want it fairly tight, but you want it so you can get it apart. If you put them together too tight, it can be a real problem getting them apart. I can't stress that enough. If you put these together and you can barely get them together, and you think drawing up these bolts and that it's going to make it better, it isn't going to make it better. It's going to make it worse. So you want these to just be able to push them together like that. That's perfect on this one. So it'll come back apart without beating it to death. And there's a lot of screwing around with rebuilding rods. You know, you can buy them, but you know, you can buy a brand new rod and you still have to do a little tune-up work to it. It isn't uncommon. You buy something that costs $1,000, there's not usually as much tune-up work, but if you think you're going to get a set of rods and not have to do something to them, you know, the more you pay for them, usually the better they are. But if you buy a set of $300 rods, chances are you're going to have to do a little bit of something to them. So I'm going to cycle these bolts 4 times, and there's a reason why I do that. I want everything burnished, and I want everything settled in. And I want to know that when I torque it for the final time, that there's no burrs or nothing hanging up on it that's going to affect the torquing of it. I'll take these all apart and I'll wash them, and I'll put them back together, and they'll be set to put in the engine. So I like to cycle them, like I said, because every time you draw up on them, it goes a little further. And that's my opinion on fasteners. For rods, I like to cycle them a few times, because everything's freshly machined, and I want to make sure that if there's any highs or anything on the cap of the rod or anything on the nut, that it's going to be flat and it's going to torque correctly. This one's good to go, and we'll start reconditioning the big end of the rod. Okay, we're gonna size the rods now. I'm using a diamond stone. I'm gonna rough them in with that. Let's see how it goes. We'll get going on it right now. Diamond cuts a little quicker, so you got to be kind of on top of it. And I'm going to finish them off with a fine finish stone. So we'll continue on to doing these. No sense watching me do all of them. And I'll get back to where we're final finishing them. I'll do these two, we'll check them, and they're all pretty much saying the same thing, so we got them cut pretty good, I'd say. That one's a little undersized, so by 1,000. Got the rods all roughed in. They're with 1 to 1 7/10. I'm going to finish them off here. I'm going to let them set for a few minutes. I'm going to reset the dial indicator and make sure that it didn't get bumped. This adjustment here, if you get it hooked up or you get it caught in the tang, I want to make sure that nothing moved. So I'm going to reset the dial indicator. And I guess I can do that right now, and you can see how that's done. So you crank it all the way in. You have a precision ring that comes with the gauge. And I always set it, but I've had that upper adjustment move a little bit, and I want these as perfect. So we'll set the ring on it. Spread the ring out. We'll put it at 0. So right there is 0. Move the gauge precision ring a little bit on the gauge. Move it a little bit. Okay, it's dropping. Right there's 0. So we'll reset it with the micrometer to the size that it needs to be. We've double checked the micrometer so we know that it's on where it needs to be. Adjust it out. Back the gauge off a little bit. You can lock it if you want to. Sometimes I don't. It doesn't seem to matter a lot. Okay, there's 0. So we'll let them set. We'll finish them up. So we got the rods pretty much finished with the finished stone. Just for anybody that's done these before, yes, I did chamfer these. I do have the tools to do that. I don't particularly care for them. We didn't take very much off the rods. I mean, this would probably cut a truer chamfer on it, but I use my chamfering cone for my cylinder bores. So that's what I used on these. I just touched them up a little bit. Okay. Another thing is when I do, sometimes I'll do one rod on this mandrel, and if you put a little bit of downward pressure, when I do the rods, I always push a little bit downward on them, not an excessive amount, but it helps travel it better across the stone face. Okay, so these rods are going to set overnight. I'm going to wash them. First, I'm going to probably check them, make sure that they didn't move around too much. I don't think I put very much heat in them. With the diamond, it goes remarkably fast. Probably cut my time down almost in half. Excuse me. Almost in half on sizing them. So what we're going to do is we're going to fit them, we're going to pin fit them, and then I'll probably hang them. So this video, I'm going to end it here because I know these videos probably aren't very exciting, you know, compared to like a pudding or a vice grip or whatever. I'm not going to try to compete with them guys, and no, I can't. I'm trying to give you good information on how this stuff really gets done. And if, you know, 8 guys are watching this and they get something out of it, I'll keep making videos. And I think I've said that in the past. There's over 300 videos on my site right now. You know, if somebody's got a question or happens along and finds one of my videos and it helps them answer one of their questions, I'm fine with that. You know, if you get something out of one of my videos, it doesn't cost anything. Please subscribe. I'm not trying to sell you pencils, t-shirts, ballpoint pens. You know, just click onto it and maybe I'll get to a point where it'll actually be worth something to me in the long run. It's a little bit of time. I don't have a problem with that. So after saying that, I'm going to focus in on this gauge here. I know it's upside down. I like it that way. It don't matter. I know it's upside down. So let's wipe off this because it's an oily mess. Let's see how close we have gotten with these rods. Okay, 0. This is the next rod. 0. That's number 8. I'm not putting the same rod up on there twice. This is number 5. 0. Right at the parting line, there's 3/10. Parting line don't mean crap. So it's 0. Zero, number 1. Number 4, 0. Number 2. This one's a tenth under. That one I'll touch up a little bit. It's easy to take it out. It's hard to put it back in, but actually a 1/10. These things are miles closer than they were from the factory ever. This one's 2/10 too. So that one needs I'm sorry, that's a 1/10. That needs a 1/10 taken out. A 1/10 of a thousandths. That one's the same way. Essentially, they are truly 0. And then number 7, the last one. 0 at 9 6. At the parting line, it goes up. It jumps up to almost 2/10. Parting line don't mean shit. Yeah, I think I'm a pretty consistent with a manual operated machine. Although saying that, anybody can learn this. I can do it. Anybody can do it. with practice. You might do it quicker, you might not. I've done a lot of connecting rods, you know, and you can buy them. But you know, at the end of the day, these rods took some time to make, but I know exactly what I have. So I'll get off my soapbox and end this video. And please, if you get anything off my channel, please subscribe. Like I said before, if I annoy the hell out of you, please subscribe. So the next video is going to be pin fitting and hanging the pistons and maybe some more other stuff. Basically, we're going to continue this 350 until it's short blocked. So there'll be videos on the 350. Right now I'm waiting for pistons for everything. So I'm not going to be doing any boring. And on the big engine, I don't know what's going on with that. So hopefully we'll get back to that at some point in time. Thanks.